Hey guys, my name is Kamran Waziir, and in this video we're going to talk about how to make rocks in Blender. So I'm going to talk about two methods that you can make rock inside of Blender. The first one is going to be using modifier, and the second one is going to be manual sculpting. So you just need to click Shift A, add a mesh, and you can add an icosphere. If you go ahead and open up the tab, you can increase the subdivisions to 4 to get the smoother sort of icosphere that I love. So you can right click shed smooth. Okay, so the first method is going to be the displace method. So I'm going to select the object, go into modifier, click add modifier. Under the form there is a modifier called displace. Click it, click new, and then click this button. Let's go ahead into texturing and change the type to Voronoi texture. You got a very sort of random shape, so first of all you can increase the size to something like 1.52 or something. Yeah, that is fine. You can increase it if you want, but I think 1.50 is okay. And you can play around with intensity, nebula level, the third, this is okay. So let me just make it a bit something like that. Okay, so here you got a rock, and for further detail you can add another displace modifier. I'm gonna add a displace. Click new and click these dots, and now we can change the type to something like a noise texture. And now if you go into modifiers and change the strength to 0.05, now it's very subtle, but you will see the effect. It's adding a bit of roughness into it. It's adding a bit of that bump into it. You can increase the strength just a bit if you want. I'm going to make it 0.07. As you can see, it's changing. We got the overall shape from the Voronoi texture, then a bit of detail from the noise texture. So now we can just slightly move it towards here. Again, Shift A. This is the first rock. The second rock will be using the second method. So I'm going to hit Shift A. I'm going to add a mesh, and I'm going to add an icosphere again. Right click and shade smooth. Now go ahead into sculpt node, and now you will see that your strength will be 0.5 and the radius will be 100 or something like that, but you can change it. I can increase the radius size and also the strength. Now you can play around with the different brushes here. You got a draw brush where you can draw different shapes. You got the clay brush where you can add like more of a different sort of thing, and you can also add a clay strip, which is really good. I love it sometimes because it helps a lot. It adds some sort of details, and I love the way it behaves because I can, like, as you can see now, we made something looking really good. You can also play around with the clay thumb to add a bit of this inward sort of shapes into your model. And you just go ahead and play around with different brushes here. You can also add a flatten, like for example I want to flat that area. You can just use the flatten brush to just make everything equal with one another. And now you can just go ahead and use the grab brush to grab those stuff around, to move it, something like that. You can again use the layer brush to add another layer of details. So you got so many brush. So for example, if I use a cloth brush, I can just decrease the strength. It's not working on that because it's not the situation for it. Like, it works on smooth objects that are already smooth, but we got a very messed up object. So I can go for a nudge. What is it? Yeah, just go to our default brushes. Okay, so I think that's fine, and this is a bit rounded, but it's okay. Now let's add a bit of detail by going to add modifiers, click deform and click displace. Again, we're gonna add a noise texture into it. So you can also add clouds, but I'm gonna go for a noise texture. You can play around with settings here, like the brightness. You can add way more smaller details, but I'm gonna go into modifiers, and I can change the strength to 0.03, or maybe I can go for 0.07. It's subtle, but it's look good. Okay, so right now, as you can see, we got two rocks. Now it's time for some materials to go on that, but I think I could do some changes into that model in sculpt mode because I want that feeling of I gotta turn off the display so I can perfectly add some details. I want some edges that are very sharp, so we could add some sort of uh, what it calls cavity. I mean cavity. I love cavity effect on the rocks that actually texture cased on it onto it. And I'm gonna add a street brush. You can also add a modifier called subdivision surface modifier for further details, which is going to add so much into it. But I think the strength of the Displace is high, so let's make it 0.02, which is fine. And let me just play around, turn off the display so we can perfectly see what is going on. Let's add a bit of details into here, clay thumb, and let's just add a class sort of thing into here, something like that. And yeah, that's fine. Okay, I think that is okay. We can use it for texturing. So you can go ahead into shading to add some sort of textures into it. So let's click shading, and now we're in shading tab. Now it's time to select this object and add some sort of textures into it. So let's click new and go ahead. Okay, so for this video I'm using an add-on called Node Wrangler. If I go to edit, preferences, in get extension I can search for Node Wrangler, which is already turned on. I think I got it in add-ons already. If you don't got it, just go from get it from the get extension tab. Node, as you can see, it's already turned on, but you need it. Okay, so what it does, when I select an object, add a new material, if I extend the principal BSDF and I hit Control Shift T, I can add PBR material. Well, I'm using a material from Ambient CG. I will show you. Let me just show you the material that I'm using in this video. Wait a second. I'm just grabbing up my stuff here. Let me just go ahead here. Okay, so it's Ambient CG. I love this rock material and I want to use it because it's very detailed and we can just use it. You can download it in PNG and JPEG if you don't want. It's 2K up to 8K. So now it's time to select that material by hitting Ctrl Shift T. I have stored this material somewhere in my PC, so I gotta go ahead and grab this one into the scene. So it's the material. Now it's time to select the material, so I'm gonna go ahead and select all the PNGs. As you can see, principal, texture, BSDF. So now as you can see, it's added the material, but the UVs are a bit off wrong, so I'm gonna go ahead into edit mode, click Q and click Q projection, and I'm gonna change this window into UV editor. If I zoom out, if I select A and hit S, I can scale it up. Hit tab and go into object mode. So as you can see, it's already looking good, but we can further add some details into it. So right now we got an ambient occlusion node here. So what you can do, you can click Shift A. I'm gonna go ahead into color. I'm gonna add a mixed color. I'm gonna connect into it, and I'm gonna connect this color into the bottom one. I think this is gonna be going to the bottom. Sorry, I gotta change it. Bottom and up. Sorry. Yeah, something like that. I'm gonna change it from mix to multiply and make the factor to all the way up. So right now I'm gonna go into render and I'm gonna change the render engine to cycles. I'm gonna make the GPU to the device to GPU compute, and I'm gonna turn on denoise for the viewport. I'm gonna go ahead into the world setting here, and I'm gonna use go ahead to the world settings. I'm gonna click the yellow dot here, and I'm gonna click environment texture. I'm gonna open up my environment texture, asset and HDRI. Okay, so I'm gonna use this HDRI here because it's a good lighting. In render, I'm gonna scroll down under film. I'm gonna click transparent. So here we go. So now we can make it a bit farther away from it, something like that. So right now it's looking fine, but if we just duplicate this one, Shift D, duplicate and grab it to somewhere right here. And again, I'm gonna click add, and I'm going to add, wait a second. Yeah, I'm gonna add an input, which is going to be a geometry node. I'm gonna search for it, geometry, input, a geometry node. I'm going to connect this node with the bottom socket. Something like that. Also, and I'm gonna grab the geometry node, the pointiness of geometry node into the factor. What does pointiness of geometry node does? Let me just show you. If I hit Control Shift and left click, again Control Shift left click, 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 and until you get into the pointiness. So now if you click add, and we're gonna add a converter, which is going to be a color ramp. So I'm gonna add it here, and I'm gonna go ahead and bring those two values together until it isolates the edges of the model, something like that. Now the model don't have a huge sort of geometry, so that's why it's a bit like it have a bit of different look. So first of all, let's hit Control S and save the file, because if you don't save your work, you're likely gonna use it in the future. So just go ahead and save your file. I'm gonna go ahead and save my file, save Blender file. Okay, so I'm gonna select the rock and go ahead into modifier. I'm gonna add a new modifier and a subdivision surface modifier. I'm gonna add it before the displacement happens, but I think it's messed up everything. I'm gonna add it after them. If I think it's messed up so much, I'm gonna remove it. Okay. Something like that. Now grab the color and connect it into the factor of this node, and select the principal BSDF and hit Control Shift left click. Okay, so right now nothing's happened because we gotta add something into it. So I'm gonna go to add. First of all, let's connect this to the top one and this one to the bottom one. Click add, and let's add a color, which is going to be a hue saturation node. I'm gonna add it here. Let's decrease the saturation value. Okay, I think if I invert this value, and play around, let me just go into material view, and if I just play around with hue and increase the saturation all the way up, and if I disconnect it, okay, so it's using multiply. Let's change it to mix. Let's connect it to the upward and this one to the bottom one. So now what it does, I'm gonna make it to a default value. Let's decrease. Let's invert those two values. Okay, so right now, as you can see, it's doing a thing. So for example, if I didn't use a hue saturation, let's delete it. Let's add a brightness node here, brightness and contrast, and connect the color to the color and this color to that color. Let's increase the brightness. So as you can see, it's affecting that area. So what we did, we added a pointiness geometry node, connected to with the color ramp, then connected it with the mix factor. Then we connected this multiply node to the A, and then the other one with a bit of brightness to the B. Then connected to base color. This is how we made it. If I just increase it by one value, as you can see, we don't got a very good result here. But if your mesh is high resolution and it's like having a huge geometry with no sort of bad stuff going on, So for example, if I apply this modifier and again that one, yeah, it's affected it so much, and I think it's now a very good one. So you know how to make a rock. Now it's time to apply this rock into that, but before we do that, let's apply all the modifiers. I'm gonna apply it also. I'm gonna add a texture and I'm gonna select this texture. As you can see, we got our realistic rock using only Blender. So the UVs are a bit off, so let's go select this object, go into edit mode, click Q and click Q projection, and if you go into object, okay, so go into edit mode. As you can see, it's very small. Hit A and hit S. Scale it up, go into object mode by hitting tab, and as you can see, we got a perfect looking rock going on, and I love it. Well, you can use different textures on it right now, okay? It's not the end of the day. Like for example, if you want different variation, you can just go ahead into browser and go ahead into ambient CG. Everything is free here, so just go to materials and search for rock. Hit enter and you will find a bunch of them, a bunch of cool textures that is going to help you a lot in making rock texture. Like you got a cliff texture here and some other sort of good looking texture that can be used for different scenarios, and it will help you a lot. Just like for example, if I want to use this rock texture for a moss and the rock together, it's a great example. If I click it, I will be able to see the full view. As you can see, it has so much detail going on, and you can download it up to 8K with PNG version and also the JPEG version in it. And if I go back and select any of that, you also got some photo scans going on. I love this website because it's got so much for free, and yeah, that's why. And that's not the end here. We gotta go for a polyhuman also. It's also a great website for different sort of PBR materials. If I click polyhuman.com, I can get HDRI's texture if you click browse textures, and if you search for rock, it's gonna give you some cool results that's going to help us in our CGI stuff. And as you can see, we got a huge amount of CGI texture. If you look at here, you got different categories. You got 527 textures with different sort of look, like you got an aerial, terrain, floor, brick, wood, plaster, fabric, metal, roofing, rock, etc. It's not the end. You got HDRIs if you click here. You got 548 HDRIs. You also got models which are really high detail, like photo scans. They are photo scans. Like you got rocks here also, rock, moss, and all of those already set up. So if I come up here and I want to add some sort of mouse into it, I can also do it right away. So like yeah, I'm gonna show you, or I'm not gonna show you, I don't know. Let me just check the tutorial how long it is. It is 17 minutes already, so I'm gonna turn off it. So guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the tutorial, follow along, and if you want the same content again, just hit the subscribe button, like this video, share it with your friend, because it's gonna help them a lot, and you're gonna be able to make yourself rocks. And also, this is a playlist of making natural acid. I already made 3 tutorials on making grass and making fern, on making different sort of stuff, but you can check them out also. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.